Buddy, what are in your estimation, some of the most significant advancements, if there have been, or breakthroughs in solar technology in 2024, in your estimation?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think in 2024, from the technology side, we saw the launch of more battery products broadly. I think the attach rates are starting to come up on the residential side, and we're seeing batteries more viable than they have in the past. So I'd say from a technology standpoint, seeing things like the Powerwall 3 launch and some other stuff is giving our customers a opportunity to attach more storage to their systems.
Brian, are you seeing a lot more battery installations on your end as well?
Yeah, we've been doing storage for some time now, but we have seen more general interest and acceptance that um, everyone wants to, pay back. What's the payback on any of their investments? And there's more acceptance that this is a security, creature comfort, and kind of resiliency for everyone to keep, things going as they remain at the house if they work from home, things like that. So people have been more excited and accepting. And anytime there's new, like Buddy mentioned, Powerwall 3 coming out from Tesla, like that creates a buzz as more there's more news about it, and then there becomes more general acceptance and the folks that just want it as well. So and also there are incentives with some of the utilities tethered to storage, which is helpful. And then anytime you're comparing storage to a generator, which would be the alternative, it's you get you know rewarded for investing in a battery as opposed to the generator. There's additional costs ongoing. So I think when you compare it in that fashion, it's also makes it an easy conversation, and folks generally get it and can kind of accelerate their solar system, being on in an outage and giving them more functionality. And obviously, I think the apps, like as time goes on, like all of our industry has done a great job of adapting, and the technology supporting the systems has been is much stronger as well, and keeps growing, and as different utilities or states have different incentives and or ways that they bill you, then the products react to that as well. I think we've seen a lot, separately, like kind of financing, like fintech stuff, and there's a lot more of that coming to play, where they're more been more customer centric and installer centric for making it easier to access financing as well. So there's been, I think, our industry continues to innovate and drive to making it more accessible for everybody.
What about government policies and incentives? Has that impacted the solar energy industry this year at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think solar's always been a very policy-driven industry, and it continues to do so today. Um, there's always a lot of volatility with that, from one administration to the next, and different state incentives that have expiration dates and maybe delays on the new programs coming out. But yeah, to speak to 2024 specifically, I mean, I think there was a lot of federal policy in the IRA that we've been waiting for clarifications on, and we finally got a lot of those in 2024, and we're kind of excited as to how that starts to roll out into kind of 2025 and beyond. Namely some of the adders to the ITC, whether it's domestic content, low income, um, community adders. So those are now kind of prescribed and somewhat usable. Where prior to 2024, they were written into law and completely unusable, or had a lot of questions on how they were to be deployed. So we've made some progress, which is good. But
And the IRA is the Inflation Reduction Act, right? Can you talk a little bit more about like what specifically the incentives are that you get from the IRA?
Yeah, so in the IRA, they from the homeowner side, they extended the federal ITC, which is 30% tax credit, investment tax credit, to go solar. That applies for businesses as well. Um, and then they had some ITC adders in there to add an extra 10% ITC if you use domestic content, if you're a commercial entity, not necessarily for a residential homeowner, but that was clarified mostly. in 2024, and we look forward to using that. Um, there's there was there's a low income, I think, adder, Brian, if I'm not mistaken. And then they clarified some other things on the nonprofits getting to use it, and some other stuff like that. So there's a lot in there. But those are kind of the main ones that affected our business in 2024.
I think that like the direct pay you're referring to with nonprofits, right? So any nonprofit now can claim the tax credit, where before we had to figure out a workaround or special financing types for them to realize it through cheaper electricity, where now they can actually file a simple form to get it directly paid back to them, the full 30%. So it obviously helps with the economics, because if you're purchasing the same solar system and you're not getting back 30%, it's obviously harder to make the economics work, especially for a nonprofit. When we're thinking churches, schools, non-government agencies, things like that, that are usually pretty budget driven and have a hard line, and it just doesn't pencil. So it makes it attainable and a huge deal for them. And then I think part of the IRA too, for some fringe things for us that we're in there, we're like for energy efficiency stuff, for heat pumps. So like I know ourselves, we did a whole home heat pump at our home, and we're able to get $2,500 back on it as a tax credit for the heat pumps. Um, and I think it also further clarified storage as a piece, which they kind of did before, but this really made it ironclad. They wrote it in more firmly that storage qualifies as a standalone for the ITC. Um, but there was a lot of great pieces. I think locally, right, for us here in Massachusetts, we had the Clean Energy Act of 2022 as well, which was I think it might have been the same month as the IRA, right? They're both in August, and basically we saw zero point zero results of that for almost 2 years because of bureaucracy and such. So um, we finally are seeing here in Massachusetts a really big deal is the net metering cap being raised from 10 kilowatt to 25, which we've been at 10 kilowatt to get the full credit for net metering since 2015. And now we're, it aligns more with system sizes, people electrifying, and what it aligns with the new incentive program that already ended. Right, it came out and then it's already gone, but before it started, it seems like. But so I think those things are good. Some other more nuanced policy pieces in that Massachusetts Clean Energy Act too, like that what they call the single parcel rule, where you can have 2 points of interconnection on the same parcel or property. So it's good for multifamilies, HOAs, and be able to divvy the system up differently, things like that. So there was a lot that is, like Buddy said, starting to get some movement, right?
What are some of the biggest challenges that you think that the solar industry has faced in 2024? Were there any, types of the typical like supply chain issues or labor shortages, regulatory issues, things like that?
Yeah, good segue. Because part of the IRA, there was also a lot of manufacturing incentives to bring domestic manufacturing here. So we're incentivizing those manufacturers to make the investment in the U.S. Manufacturing economy, and so there's challenges with that, right? When we're kind of shifting that supply chain over here, and we kind of dealt with some of that, but I think long term it's on a good trajectory for sure. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. It's just kind of a transition, I think, for a lot of our manufacturer partners to make that shift.